All right, and we're live. We're live. All right. So, oh man, I did not really get to that food. Like I got to it way earlier. I mean, excuse me. I bust down so hard. So
I
hard
watched
on
part
that
of that
food.
earlier.
Yeah, man. I'm so sorry. I saved some for you.
Yeah, bro. I'm sorry I couldn't make it.
It's plenty of it left.
Well, I mean,
But
I'm
no, it's
off on
not.
Tuesday though,
I'm gonna
so
tell you right now that
I
was
might
great.
still have to just slide through and like get a
Oh
plate.
no, it ain't
No,
gonna be here that
because it ain't gonna
long.
be there by
It ain't
then,
going.
bro.
Oh no, it's
I mean, that's
not.
just that's just 48 hours though. That looked like a lot. It looked like a lot. I'm just saying.
You. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, no, it looks so good. I'm sorry. It
Oh, bro,
looks
that
so
shit
good.
was busting, bro.
It was so good. Shrimp,
I'm very
chicken,
disappointed in myself.
bacon. Oh Jesus.
Was that shrimp?
Shrimp, chicken, bacon. Roll them up in a lasagna pan. Put some cream and broccoli,
Oh
butter,
my
and a
god.
cheese on the top. Then you're gonna
Oh,
top it off with the cheese on the top.
that shit would have been wonderful.
Oh man, it
I missed
was
that.
it was it was so good. But anyway,
That's a tragedy.
it was so good. But let's see what else I was doing. Um,
Yeah, bro, what you been up to?
man, I've just been working. To be honest, I'm so tired because I've just been working so much today.
Likewise.
Um,
Like, bro. Oh my
I
god.
thought this was the Lord's Day.
They don't respect the Lord's Day. And you know who they are.
I didn't get Saturday. I didn't get Sunday. I gotta have a vacation soon. Don't
Dude,
know
that
where
would
I'm
be
going.
dope. Like, just go somewhere. Just like
I was
a
thinking
perfect
I
place.
I legit wanted to go to like Miami for like a couple of days.
Eileen wants to go on a trip.
I was just gonna like take babe and just find
Miami's
myself
nice.
lost.
It's expensive though. I've never been, but I've been told.
So I'm so happy for everyone to join us this evening for our special late night stream. Thank you so
Lately.
much for joining us. And I just wanted to get started off by talking. And I got a little piece prepared for this, for just to start off our podcast and just to let you know where we are. Um, it was good where it was because it's like kind of in my glasses because it's like, yeah. So, um, but I got a piece prepared. Thank you so much, Bay. And by the way, everything always set up by Bay. Bay does everything. Without her, I don't do this. So thank you so much, Bay, for setting up the room, setting up everything. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, if for the amount of time that I have in a day, if she can't do it, uh, this isn't gonna get done. Period. So thank you so much, Bay. All right, and then going into the first part of what I have prepared for the Ukrainian people and my whole uh, thing. I can't comment on your situation about the senseless loss of life that's just been needlessly initiated for absolutely no reason. Um, we're going to be taking a toast to them at the top of the podcast. So I want to read this off and then we'll toast. To the Americans fearful of the current situation 5,000 miles overseas, Let us not
5,000.
forget that the price of freedom is life. The same way that the Ukrainian citizens stare down jets carrying nuclear armaments, the same way their presidents ask for guns, not a ride. This is how steadfast we must cling to freedom. Cheers to Ukraine. Long live Ukraine. That's it. That's certainly been in my refrigerator. But thank you. Oh, you can just keep it here. I'm probably gonna be doing shots probably after each and every one of these because
Oh,
each and
facts, bro.
every yeah, each and every one of these stories is so bad. And I guess since you're not here eating, we'll just be drinking together. So you'll be
I
drinking with
mean,
us
bro,
tonight now.
I got some Chinese. It's all good. We can if you want to grab a plate of that
Yeah,
food that
I
I
was
can't fucking
yeah, I still got my
enjoy,
food.
that I can't enjoy, you know, grab down. Yeah, man. Like, no, totally. Like, to the people of Ukraine and to Ukrainian workers that have to like deal with this bullshit imperialist conflict.
Yeah.
Oh my god, bro. Like, can you imagine, bro? Just a couple days ago, you were just going to work. Now fucking Putin's invading. Fucking the fuck.
Well, I mean, yesterday you
As a
were soft
Ukrainian,
with.
you know.
I was looking at this lady. She was like, "Well, I used to be a scientist, and I like was working on like all this different stuff, and now I'm a soldier."
All of a sudden, you have to defend the place where you've lived, um, because another power essentially wanted to undermine the oligarchs that live within your state. They ain't got shit to do with you. You just wanted to work, bro. Go to work, live your life.
Missile. Now your entire house is shelled, and now you have to move.
Yeah, you're a fucking refugee now. It's fucked up, bro. Just L's for the Ukrainian workers, bro.
I think it's more L's over here.
What, in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Explain who you're talking
absolutely. Speak on it, bro.
Oh, and thank you so much for joining us on Twitch. Thank you for joining us on Facebook. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. Um, Everyone who's in here for Jeremy's Cheat Day podcast and Mind Kill Media, thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to thank you on each and every outlet that takes the time to really come through. This is a really serious like podcast. Like I don't. Oh, and by the way, and this is so my name is Jeremy. Y'all already know me, and this is my co-host for this evening, Demi Bad Hands. I have specifically looked for Demi Bad Hands. This is my road dog from way back in the day. I'm telling you, we have a lot of crazy. Just one crazy story.
Absolutely.
Right, we got plenty. So we go way back, and he is a foreign policy expert. And he when I
Oh,
tell
bro,
you
I'm not an expert.
it doesn't really matter. Like, okay, for as much as you talk about foreign policy, see, here's the thing.
I'd be right though.
Here's the thing. We live in a Western society in where we believe that credentials makes an expert, and that's not what makes an expert. What makes an expert in a subject matter is how much time you spend researching a particular subject matter. And I can definitely tell you that I know you in particular has have way more than hundreds of hours of research. And once you hit that 100th hour, man, you're an expert. And I know it might not feel you may not feel like it. You might down talk yourself or whatever, but don't feel like that. You don't have to. because you can. I've seen you hold your own against some pretty just just regular conversations, and that's what it and where it matters. You know, when we're talking about the discussions of all these things, your day to day conversations and those things that you may not consider to be very important or extremely important.
Word.
Day to day conversations, discussions in your workplace, in your home, for those children who are living, and especially right now in this really weird time of my friends are black. Well, now, or my friends are Mexican. Now they're illegal. I don't know. It's like
It is a
the
really
pendulum
strange
the
time to be
pendulum
alive.
of hate in America just isn't swinging this way towards black Americans, so it could be everywhere. It could be anywhere.
Right.
It was always towards us, but it's like, I don't know, who's the flavor of the month today. It was it from 2000, from 9/11 2001 till just recently. It was,
Brown people.
Afghan brown people.
Yeah.
Now it's
Muslims. Yeah.
brown people. So
Mm.
we'll figure out which brown people, what other it is.
I mean, like that's really what it's all about, isn't it? Um, the bigotry and the racism, and they're constantly pivoting
Well,
from.
that's exactly what Russia is using to undermine the United States.
Mm,
It's in the report. I mean, that's what the Russians said that they were going to use, was all the racism and all the stuff that we've sown here. They're going to use to say, to gain support. It is by no surprise that when Putin invaded, um, well, he's trying to invade Kiev. He said, "I'm here to denazify your capital, basically, and denazify your leaders."
right. Right.
It's
Right.
because he's trying to use the United States. He's actually trying to appeal to the minorities here.
I mean,
It
they're
doesn't work
wrong.
out very well because it's not like, oh man, the minorities here is like, oh, what Putin is thinking is that they're gonna be like, yeah, F the man. And we're just like, you're the man.
I mean, I get that. But states that oppose the United States have always used the racism within our DNA as something to point to and what have you. And Putin's definitely, the man as regards the situation in Ukraine. Absolutely.
I mean, we've
Um,
already established that it's a national
yeah,
security risk. I mean,
yeah.
DOD has had plenty of reports talking about that this is a national security risk.
What?
Um,
What's a national security risk?
Racism.
I mean, in what way? Like black radical extremism, or are you talking about like Nazis and shit?
Black radical extremism, as usual.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that study like basically found that like it wasn't really that big of a threat. Oh, they ran it back.
No, it's basically like, long story short, like, not that, but it's not even that. It's the fact that we even have to talk about black radical extremism.
Yeah, that shit is hilarious to
Where
me.
did it come from?
Like what?
It's just
Black
one of
radical
those.
extremism where?
It's one of those things
Wow.
where,
I would love that.
like what we're talking about right now, like,
That would be great.
one of these nothing burgers of like, not the Nazis.
But I mean, it's not like they're wrong, honestly, bro. And it's not anything new. As regards to black radical extremism and the U.S. government viewing it as a threat. Like
Well, I mean, it's just kind of crazy because he thinks that he's going to be the guy that, like, we're just like, yeah, you're helping out the guys. You're
he's
you're helping me.
hilarious. He's hilarious, dude.
So it doesn't it
Like his
but I feel like
eyes.
if Trump would have been president for any kind of for any more length of time, that could have escalated into a situation and where that talking point would have been valid.
That would have been interesting. Um, and yeah, no, I agree. That talking point under a Trump administration definitely would have been valid. Although I don't honestly, I think Trump would have taken Putin's side for some weird reason. Sanctions
Well,
likely would have been still applied, but as we've seen, he still would have praised the heck out of dude.
I mean, the EU would have passed sanctions probably after Ukraine would have fallen. like,
Oh
yeah,
man. Oh, they
I'm
gotta
pretty
they
sure.
gotta keep those oil prices low, right? Oh,
We honestly we wouldn't really even be talking about this too much if it was, and that's really, and this is what it comes down to. The first shots were around this whole conflict was fired in 2018. It was some Russian boats basically shooting open fire on some Ukrainian military in 2018 called the Kurdish Strait incident. And basically, during that time, we didn't hear about it, and no one reported on it because they kind of knew that Trump wouldn't do much about it. And that's kind of what happened there. And so, we've had plenty of time, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I really do feel like at this point, this guy really did put us in this position.
which guy?
Um,
Putin?
no, Trump.
Trump.
Trump, because
Oh, by doing nothing.
well, that's because he was his proxy from the beginning.
I
From the beginning.
mean, I'm not gonna cap. It's not just like Trump. It goes all the way back to Obama. Unfortunately, fortunately, I don't know. It really depends on your perspective and opinion on the guy. But like 2014, there was a coup in Ukraine, right?
Hmm.
And it's disputed whether the then sitting president was democratically elected or not democratically elected. This is neither here nor there. There was a coup um, in Ukraine, and Ukraine went from largely, I want to say, neutral or kind of like pro Russian in temperament to neutral and kind of pro NATO in a way. During that same period, um, Putin annexed Crimea in 2014, right, under
Hmm.
Obama. That was their first move. And then during that same period, that's when the Donbass region, those particular cities declared their independence, if you will. Since then, there's been a small civil war in eastern Ukraine with Russian separatists backed by Russia. So Russia has been engaged in this thing for a solid 8 years now. It's just now, for reasons that are still unknown to me, because I don't get it. But I mean, they're not entirely unknown, but we can elaborate on that. But now, Putin has invaded. He's escalated a conflict that he's been involved in for quite some time, which started with the annexation of Crimea and the backing of these separatists in eastern Ukraine. The trigger being that the old government allegedly no longer existed, because at the time, there was a period in time when Ukraine had one of the largest nuclear stockpiles in the world, and it willingly, yeah, there was a period of time where Ukraine, after the demantalization of the USSR, Ukraine had one of the largest stockpiles in the world. Um, and so, as an agreement, they denuclearized, and the condition was that the United States, the UK, and Russia would not, take antagonistic action against them. And if any one of them did, the other one would intervene. So I think it was called the Budapest something or other, Budapest Memorandum. That's what it was called. So
Hmm.
that happens, but then the coup in 2014 happens, and Putin declares that since the government that made the Budapest Memorandum no longer exists, I can just go ahead and annex Crimea. At the same time, you have this so-called People's Republic that's established in eastern Ukraine, And then at the
Right.
same time, now that Putin has actually invaded, the UK and Britain are just kind of sitting on their hands, like, well, good luck, bro. Politely arming them in the background, of course, but not actually coming to their defense.
Hmm. Good old Barack. Good old Barack Obama.
I mean, a lot of shit could have been avoided, you know.
Right. I mean, who would have foreseen this from? No, you could have seen it. You could have seen it coming a mile away. So it's, but also at the end of the day, does it really meet the demands of the United States energy markets?
Oh, absolutely. Of course.
Right?
Absolutely.
Is
Speak on
that
that, bro.
really, is that really the whole thing about that? Because the real thing about this is that this whole war is purely because the climate is bad.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, the Russian economy pretty much revolves around getting things out of the ground and selling them. Their mining industry and getting corn and grain and things like that. I've been looking at bulk carrier ships go into Russia, and by the way, funny story about that.
What's that?
Um, Russian ships have been firing on civilian merchant ships.
That's weird. I
That's
think a
really
war
weird.
crime, technically.
Yeah.
Um,
People are living, but this is things. When I'm thinking something is
so
really off.
I don't, so it's not weird, like, if you view it as a conflict between capitalist powers, it makes sense to target merchant ships, but like, that's weird, dude. In, in 2022, this year of our Lord, bro. Like,
I mean, you kind of never want to go down the route of making your state a failed state by basically making the entire international community not want to do trade with
oh
you. Like,
man, jeez. And
like
it really doesn't work out for capitalist states that become pariahs at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
They just, they just collapse, fall into civil wars, sectarianism.
Because I'm looking at it right now, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, the only ally you have right now is not even China.
Oh yeah, the
Because
Chinese are
you
funny.
it, and then Kazakhstan, your closest ally, didn't send you a single red troop. I thought that was crazy to me.
I
Kazakhstan.
mean, like, the invasion wasn't necessary. Some people,
No, it was necessary. It was
was it
necessary.
really? Like, it could have been
It was
avoided,
necessary
honestly.
because
Because
it
take, for
aligns.
example, go ahead.
It aligns
This isn't
with
Fox
their
News.
aggressions towards the Arctic Circle. Why are they trying to go towards the Arctic?
I have no idea.
Oil.
That makes sense.
It makes the sense. Think about it. Why did we go to war in Afghanistan? Why did
Well,
we go to war in Iraq?
well,
Why
Afghanistan
did
was like opium. Iraq
so
was
what? So we already
resources.
had the precursor that this was going to be an issue, and this is really our our first foreign climate war, right? And it's just as silly. Where is our weapons of mass destruction? I've heard that ever since I was a kid. Where were they? Did we
There
ever
were
find
none.
them?
There were never any weapons of mass destruction. It was an
But there was an
imperialist
ass ton of
conflict.
oil.
Oh
I
yeah, there
re-
was an
you
ass
re-
ton of oil,
I
and they made a hell of a
remember
lot of
the
money.
first week of the Iraq war. When we went to war, I remember that gas prices were like $1.19.
My dad used to be able to fill his tank for the week with $20.
$1.19. And I mean, gas was normally $2, $3. Like, I mean, this isn't like something new. But I just distinctly remember that extremely sharp drop in prices. And I remember people taking pictures of it, and it was like, we was never going to see prices like this ever again. But we didn't really understand like the global implications of why our gas prices were so low. Because when you
Mm,
see this conflict pop off, you see that your gas prices is high,
right.
right? So this is just a global climate war from the other side. Like, this is what it is. Like, I'm pretty sure there was other packs and nations and groups and organizations who were against the United States colluding against us. They just didn't invite. They just those people just haven't been invited to the same international groups.
The same international groups.
Mm-hmm. UN, NATO.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I mean, like you have to think about it like this as it regards to the United States. You know, we live here, so a certain extent, we do have some, influence. We have, of course, our procedural elections where we get to pick, which faction of the ruling class gets to declare the wars. But like as far as influence on a world stage and imperialist conflicts, the United States really does take the cake, right?
Right.
Um,
And we're masters at it.
yeah, we're masters at it. You know, like we
Like,
are definitely masters at the craft as far as engaging in imperialist conflicts for an extended period of time. Um, and the anti-war movement in this country is just completely impotent, right? Like you'll think as much time as much money as we spend on war, as much as it really
right.
doesn't benefit us, by now you would have think something would have popped off and we would just like put an end to these wars by now, right? Like what's it going to take? Because it seems that, because it's not like voting for your mayor or your city council member or your governor or your state rep and what have you, all of these being extremely important as far as like local issues are concerned.
Well, why do we have oil contractors, oil field contractors going to foreign lands?
Why not, bro?
Right. Why not?
Why not? Because it
Why not?
benefits the
Why
people who
not
really
buy some
represent
Halliburton stock today?
today, bro. And line goes, "Brr," like, dude, it's all they care about. That's all they care about. There are real people with real needs, and it's like, oh, line goes up, ooh, war, oh, line goes up, ooh.
And
It's all a
that's
metaphor for something else.
it's not funny, but
It's
it's
it's not
this because at the end of the day, Ukraine happens.
right. Yes, absolutely. You know,
And I guess like and obviously, you know, if this isn't what I'm trying to figure out is why isn't this like the United States outside looking in? Why is this so outside looking out? Like,
mm,
like that's really.
yes, that
Oh
is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you're with us today, please go grab a snack, uh, sit down, chillax, because we'll be here for a little bit. We got plenty of talk about. We'll be going through some other things in a little bit, but please sit back, chillax, grab a snack. Thank you for joining us, and yeah.
But yeah, no.
So
Why haven't we turned this thing inward, right, onto the country that we live in, right?
right,
Especially
because we
consider.
could
Oh
we
no,
could
go
be
ahead,
in
man.
this same situation if we just didn't have the America Fuck Yeah song.
But see, that's the difference because the U.S. has established hegemony, right, throughout the globe, right. So who's really going to tell the U.S. that's fucked up, bro? Right?
Right.
Like, like the whole everyone in the UN can say, "Hey, U.S., don't do that," and the U.S., if she really wanted to, is going to do it, and who's going to stop her?
Well, you it's not even that. It's like we won the war marketing too. So
Yeah,
if you do say, "Hey, boo, guys," it'll be like you're against freedom and independence and how do they how else do they phrase these coups? Liberation. Uh,
Liberation, freedom, independence,
and
sovereignty, all kinds of nonsense. Dude was a dictator, this, that, and the third. We gotta go in. We gotta save the people. We gotta align ourselves with the
we
moderate
gotta
rebels, and then you'll
um
have the CIA funding the moderate rebels, and then you'll have the Pentagon funding the other moderate rebels, and then the moderate rebels, both funded by America, are gonna fight, and then the country is toppled and it's destabilized, and then, yay, American companies get to penetrate a new market without a stable government where they can seize the resources and sell them on the open market and
I mean
profit.
all and right now because of the last 4 years, our marketing is pretty bad.
Oh, because of
Um,
Donald.
yep.
Oh man, that guy.
I, I don't even. We got some other things talking about later in the podcast and later in the stream with him. I just
I mean, he
the
kind of did screw the pooch.
consequences
Oh,
of
go ahead.
not electing that weird pantsuit lady really cost us.
What, Hillary Clinton?
Yeah,
How do you figure? Cause like, look, bro, Obama was president. Man's took Crimea or whatever. Um, I don't see how anything could have really been. Perhaps the pandemic could have been handled differently, but even under Biden, we see there are clear limits.
I mean that would have at least given us an economic position.
Perhaps,
Like,
perhaps.
do you really think that the American economy at this particular point right now can handle a squeeze?
Hell no, bro. Absolutely not. Oh
like
man.
they're like, well, gas could be like $5 a gallon this summer, and I'm like,
But
y'all better not get your ass
whose
involved
fault is
over
that?
there. Y'all better not get
Like,
your ass
okay,
involved over there.
gas
You
spikes up.
better
Who really benefits,
keep your
right?
ass over here because you can't do. You're not in an economic position to do that.
Who's not? The U.S.
Right. Now
Yeah.
I did hear that I did read where he made a phone call to our Saudi boys. Um and this is the reason, and this is the reason why the Saudis get away with war crimes and all the crazy stuff and basically assassinating people and just
Oh
being the
yeah, man.
wild
Those
wild
are our
west.
guys, man. That's the United States. Like
they,
that's the
these
homie,
guys
bro. That's Lil Bruh
these guys
right there.
assassinated a whole ass reporter,
That's Lil Bruh. Hold up, I gotta put this thing in low power mode. Boop, boop. All
and
right.
now in our time of crisis, when Russia's acting up, you're like, hey guys, you want to unload some of that oil at 30%?
Nah.
They gave them a 30% raise in position, so they get to unleash their oil for about a 30% oil price to make sure that the United States oil supply stays.
I mean, that's the game, bro. That's really the game. And at the end of the day, really, it is low key about oil, right? Because Russia is a massive oil exporter, right? Especially to Western Europe.
Massive.
Massive oil exporter,
They,
Western Europe,
they
oil and natural gas.
grains, massive
And yeah,
corn,
Ukraine,
massive.
right. And so, like, the United States would love for nothing more to destabilize both Russia and Ukraine. So, Western Europe has no
Because we
choice
do the
but to,
same shit.
yeah,
We're in the
man,
same
we
market.
export a fuck ton of oil, bro. They
If
would
they get
love,
Russia out the market, they get to say,
yeah.
oh,
Who
oh,
are they going to
Russia
turn
is
to?
bad.
Russia's
Russia is
so
bad.
evil.
What I'm trying
And
to figure out
Ukraine's
is
unstable. We can't do business with them either. Ooh,
where is our next war going to be? Because unfortunately, here's what I've come to think of.
what's up?
When I seen that Biden signed it was more, way more drilling, and basically way more cutting and all these forestry grants and things.
Right.
When I seen that this was like the real issue, and I seen that this was going to be where we're going to be heading, I realized that he didn't have the chops. He
He
didn't
didn't
have
have
the
the
chops.
chops.
Yeah. So DOD,
Yeah.
Department of Defense, have basically said that we're going to experience a hell of a lot of new climate wars if we don't get it together. Uh, they said that if we continue to keep going down the route of the world heating up the way it is, people will, and also not just this. The CIA came out with this last year, by the way, and it's basically their 2020-30 intelligence outlook report. But basically, they said that the world's going to be way more contested,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Near peer contests are going to be firing up. And that's why you're seeing this happen. That's why you're seeing a whole bunch of. You're going to see a lot more near peer contests. You're going
Right.
to see China start to move over into Taiwan. You're going to start to see China, and not just Taiwan, but a lot of other places that are still Chinese in by name. Like that whole Hong Kong situation where they're acting up a little bit, you're gonna start seeing some things over there, real, but it's gonna be much more quieter than it is in Russia.
I mean,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, all of that is China anyway, so it's like anyway.
so what I'm saying is that it seems like every government organization and agency knows exactly what was about to go down, except the American citizens.
What? No, bro. We've known what's gonna go down for
We
ages.
didn't
Just ignore
see,
it, bro.
well, right. We love ignoring disasters until they actually happen.
No, I'm not saying America. Well, okay. The U.S. government loves ignoring disasters until they actually happen.
Not the government, the people. I'm not
The
talking
people
about
are
that
kept
because the
ignorant, bro.
government are. I read this report too. Like it wasn't secret. Like,
Bro, unless
like
they blast that shit wall to wall on the news, people don't know.
right. The
Yeah,
press is the people. Well, it's the press and the people, but the
yeah.
people is the press.
But no, the people is not the press, bro. The press is controlled by a handful of corporations that make millions of dollars that are also in the pockets of the oil interest anyway. And they would rather not if the people woke up about the climate disaster that's impending and our government's inaction and in some cases deliberate deliberate disruption of any attempt to move beyond oil and such. Of course the people would do something about it.
Because that's basically what DoD said. Like we got to move past oil. Like they even
Like,
said that we have to do investment in alternative. Their recommendations from that huge report was that we got to start investing in alternative energy. Simple as that.
I mean, we needed to have been doing that, bro. Like at least a century ago, you know. Um, I'd
And
look it up, but
then
I think at least since the 1920s, scientists have been reporting the effects of oil on the climate, and then it's just been ramping up since then. At least since the 70s, oil companies themselves have known the impact of of burning all these fossil fuels on the climate, and they knew where it would lead climate wars. You know, they're going to lead to wars over water. They're going to lead to wars over. They're already leading. They've always led into wars over gas and such. And then as we move green, as long as the underlying motive is making a profit and a need to penetrate markets to generate new profit when profit starts to fall, we're still going to see these coups and these wars, right? Just like in Bolivia, there was a coup over what? Over lithium. Like that's just an
right,
example. Like so it's not just enough to like transition, right? In the course of the transition, there's still going to be, as you said, competing interest. And as long as there are capitalists, specifically in America, who want to make the most profit and stay numero uno, they're going to compete with the interest of capitalists in other states. And that's going to translate itself into conflicts between these governments. And the only people that are going to get hurt in this are the workers and everyone else. whether economically or literally, like with our lives. In the first world, in the global north, in the United States, we're privileged enough where most of the damage is economic, right? And in some extreme cases, economic damage can lead to loss of life, right? In other parts of the world, the damage is far more brutal.
Well, missiles are guaranteed.
Death. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know what I'm saying,
That's
dog?
right. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Like, like I started off the podcast because I've been seeing the American fear machine just go.
Just going at a
I
thousand
mean,
miles an hour.
the American fear machine is really good at what they're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They've had a century of practice. You know what I'm
And
saying?
the people are just, I don't know, the way that it is like the people are just like they're fearful of nothing. You have nothing to fear but fear itself. But if you say that and like in this context, people will say that you're flipping on their head, and it's not. You really
I
have nothing to
mean,
fear but fear itself. Because he's not like, look, we're past the point where we're talking about nuclear arms. It's like Cold War. We done been through that. We done been through those fights. We done been through all that. We done been through heightening conflicts. We done been through people about to exchange nukes overnight. We done actually had much closer calls than this.
absolutely.
Like the closest calls of actually the world actually fucking ending was during the times of the day where no one would have actually even knew that what was happening, because it was like, two people are seeing blips on a radar and they're like making phone calls and stuff. You're not a part of that.
Oh, bro, yeah, like allegedly when they were fucking when they violated sovereignty to go ahead and take out Osama bin Laden, bro. Motherfucking India and
We were
Pakistan thought that they're
hours away from nuclear war.
yeah, bro. Like I was like, what? Oh, we almost all died. And no one knew. They let us know a couple months later when it was no longer relevant. Like, yeah, we can go ahead and put this in the headline now.
Right.
Like, what? Oh shit, we almost died because y'all wanted to fucking kill one terrorist. Fuck y'all.
Who's supposed to know that? Oh, it's just the Americans.
Shit, right. Oh, it's just the Americans violating sovereignty without telling you. That's just normal, bro. No biggie.
Hey, is that your jet? Is that your nuclear submarine parked outside with nuclear
Everyone
armaments
knows that
outside?
America owns the planet anyway, bro. Like,
And
what?
that's what it comes down to. And it's like, okay,
So bad.
when you're talking to people sitting from this kind of privilege and economic privilege, and they're like, we're gonna get okay. So one of my favorite YouTubers, Bo, he's a very common sense newscaster. I just like him, but he just recently caved into his audience.
What do you
And
mean?
they're basically he had to make us. He was like, "Well, now I got to make a video about nuclear bombs. What to do in case of a nuclear bomb." Isn't that a very short video? Kiss your ass goodbye.
Yo, who are we talking?
Well, he's actually a really good reporter. He's an extremely just I don't know. He's a really flat reporter that I like.
Shit.
Left leaning, very left leaning.
Oh fuck. They
Um,
fucking made him fucking
but yeah, and
feed
then
into the
it's
hysteria.
yeah, and he
Yo,
likes to report about survival and like how
right.
to keep yourself, if you're in the woods, what to bring in when you're in the woods, what to, how to make safety kits, things like that. Like he'll do things like that.
I'm not gonna cap. Personally, I'm not as far as like this imperialist conflict is concerned, I'm not worried about nukes. I don't think like there's gonna be usage of nuclear weapons. I don't think people should take anything off the table as like a possibility. I think the probability of nukes being used is extremely low. But at the same time, a lot of people thought that this dude was not going to invade, and then here we are. You know?
Well, uh, but that was coming.
I mean, I thought it was coming, but a lot of people
We
also
all
didn't.
seen it was no. It's like those. It's like that's what I'm saying. The
And they were
shock and awe about this situation is kind of perplexing to me. It's kind of perplexing to me that we would think that we're the only people who are going to do this.
what like? Oh, it's
And
perplexing that
then
people would think that the U.S. were the only people that would do something like this.
yeah, and then also like I mean, this war is really far away.
Exactly.
We have a war going on right here in
A-
our backyard,
Absolutely. Speak on it.
and man, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. What really bothers me is that we're sitting over here talking about this, and then this comes up. We're talking about Ukraine versus Russia, and we have a real serious issue of Georgia closing way more than 9 polling locations now at this point. This was at the time I remember just doing some research, but Georgia, they're trying to limit early voting as usual, right?
Of
These
course.
are things that me and you. So just to give y'all some backstory, me and Ademolo, we've done voter registration. We've done voting rights. We've done this thing. This is an ongoing war. Like just like you see this stuff overseas, this stuff here is happening all the time. And what you're seeing right here is the war getting worse. And the missiles are getting closer, and the gunfire is getting closer, and it's getting closer, and it's getting closer to who? Your fellow minorities, your fellow disenfranchised voters,
Right. Absolutely.
felons,
Um.
probationers. I just seen a story in Tennessee of a lady getting 6 years, six
For what?
years of jail time for voting because she thought she had the right to vote because the jail told her, well, the probation thing told her that she could go vote. She wrote a letter just to make sure that she could go vote. She wound up voting in an election. They said that she was doing election fraud. Now, out of all the that's going on Capitol Hill right now, of course, this one's going to be voter fraud.
Oh, what?
Of
That's the
course,
voter fraud.
right. This is going to be the voter fraud.
Yo, dog.
Disenfranchised probationer. So she got
What?
sentenced to 6 years in jail.
You know why
Six
that is,
years?
bro? Like, honestly, the honest to God truth, the reason why that is the way that it is, why they fight so aggressively against black voting rights, is because there was a period in time in
Mm-hmm.
United States history, in Southern history in particular, during the Civil War, during and after the Civil War, the period known as Reconstruction, which was systematically dismantled. Reconstruction did not fail; it was a resounding success.
Mm-hmm.
During that period, as Northern armies marched throughout the South, they conducted various experiments, very social, political, economic,
If you
government
fix me a little
experiments,
bowl.
if you will.
Thank you.
And during that period, Black people were allowed to vote. And if you are not aware of this, up until that point, in most parts of the United States, in particular the South, the franchise was not really expanded to include white Southern poor people who did not own property, right? So they were pretty much on the outskirts. Um, they lived in, to use African parlance, the bush. They were bushmen, they
Mm-hmm.
were white bushmen, right? So for the most part, you had Southern planters with their massive slave plantations using those numbers to dominate the South. During the period of Reconstruction, this was turned on its head. All of a sudden, poor whites and freed blacks had rights and they could participate in politics. And I'm not saying they created a utopia or anything, but they were in the process of constructing a more equitable and just society. Now, in retaliation of this, we had reactionary elements, Jim Crow, and then we fast forward to the present day. Those elements still exist within our society throughout the South. And they would hate for black people in general and working class white people to come together and fight against the same elements that attack us, right? Like when someone is incarcerated, it delivers a massive economic blow to their life and well-being, right? At the same
Mm-hmm.
time, they lose the right to vote, and then they come back into the civilian world, if you will, are not fully informed as to what rights they have, don't have, so on and so forth, and then have to get back into the economic rat race. They don't have time to figure out what's going on politically. And then when they go to exercise a right that they thought they had, you arrest them.
Right.
And that's all part of, like, it's just a long history from they saw that there was a period of time where black people had essentially self-governance in the South alongside white people who themselves had been economically disenfranchised, which during that period meant also that they were politically disenfranchised. And they're moving towards a more just and equitable society. And that's what the powers that be want to avoid. They don't want that. They don't want to end racism. They don't want to end income inequality. Not even end it, but even alleviate it a little bit, right?
Is the same tools that they use to manipulate the markets and things like that are the same ones our foreign enemies are going to use.
Absolutely.
So it's racism is always going to be unpatriotic, no matter
Right.
how you look at it.
Right. Like, I mean, I would even say it's unpatriotic. Racism is pretty solidly in America's DNA.
It's engraved,
It's
but if you
engraved.
truly loved your
Like, how do we
country,
root that out, bro?
if you truly loved your country and you wanted to see it succeed
Right.
and not become a failed state,
Right.
and I guess you would say not patriot, you would say countryman.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely countrymen. Because this idea of like patriotism is just kind of like weird. Like, yeah, you want to
Right,
be,
right.
you want to have concern for like your neighbors. You want to have concern for your community, like, your town and such, your city. But this idea that like a government that fundamentally doesn't typically represent the interest of most working people in this country, that we
Yeah,
should be loyal
I'm
to
not
it.
really talking about a fervent for the government
Okay,
and not a fervent for those people. I'm talking about a fervent for the people
absolutely.
you live with. I mean, I think the real reason why we're looking at the Ukrainian situation and we're relating it so hard to home is because, I mean, hell, there's Ukrainian films that are released here. You know, those same people that you see getting messed up overseas are the same ones that, you can relate to on Twitch, probably. I'm pretty sure there's some Ukrainian streamer or some kind of, I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's fake,
absolutely. But like, I'm
you
not.
know,
I don't want to like make light of the Ukrainian situation because we've talked about it a lot. Um,
yeah.
but like, as regards just the media's attention and highlighting it, like, a lot of it does have to do with the fact that they are, like, not people of color, right? Like,
Honestly, I really hope the Fear Machine keeps it up so we can have ourselves a black Supreme Court justice. If they could just keep up the Fear Machine long enough so we could just slip our nominee through, that would be
like
great.
the Republicans aren't even paying attention to that, bro. They're stuck playing they're playing geopolitical football right now, bro. Oh man. I'm not mad at it. A black Supreme Court justice. You like, as far as like
I like
institute.
her background. Her
Yeah,
background
absolutely.
act. I like her background. I don't care what anyone says. I'm gonna be looking at uh is I don't
Go ahead.
Tanji Brown Jackson.
Shoot, bro. Your guess is good. I'm not gonna cap, bro. Like, when it comes to,
It's Kantanji Brown Jackson.
yeah,
So basically that person, I'm very happy for her background and for her to be chosen.
right.
Yes, this is good, but
Speak on it.
I mean, Her background is excellent. She worked for the Innocence Project. She has freed, what is it, 30 innocent people.
Really?
Yeah,
What is the
like
Innocence Project? Speak on that.
the Innocence Project is basically where they go through and they just go through and they hear convicted felons and those who say that they're innocent, they try to give them resources to appeal their cases and they kind of evaluate whether or not they're just straight up lying or they're actually a credible case. And for those credible cases, they try to get as much evidence and try to make sure these people had a fair trial. And of course, more times out of 10, they didn't even have a fair trial to begin with. And that's usually what the Innocence Project unveils.
Makes sense. I mean, 9 times out of 10, they didn't have a fair trial to begin with, bro. The way they
Um,
fucking have people take these plea bargains in court, give them no choice, and then they
her
all get locked up.
thesis,
Go ahead.
her thesis was how the plea bargaining system was basically a coercion.
Absolutely, that's exactly what
That
it is. It's
was that
coercive.
was that was her doctoral thesis.
Like that, the entire plea bargain process is coercive. It,
She graduated from Harvard, and that was her doctoral thesis. I was like, hmm, okay.
like it kills people, bro. It prematurely ends lives and it kills people. It forces people into situations that they can't get out of, especially people in economically, you know, marginalized situations. Which,
I don't know. I think she's gonna be great. I think she's gonna do some really great things if people vote with her instead of acting like they normally do. And that's just simply how it is. And that's all I'm gonna say about it.
already talking about the, the Supreme Court justice. I
Hmm.
mean, honestly, bro, um, I think as
I
far as like
really don't think
pushing
that they're
forward,
gonna let her go through though.
why not? What,
I don't
bro?
think so.
Bro,
She's squeaky
what?
clean. She's got it all in the bag. But the way
So
these
how
Republicans,
are they gonna prevent her, bro? Like I would think, okay, I don't give Mr. Joe Biden credit for a lot of things, right?
you don't know the true evil of Ted Cruz.
The true evil of Ted, of Rafael Cruz.
Hmm.
That's it. Rafael Cruz.
Ted Cruz and what's his damn name?
Is it the other Cuban one? Marco Rubio. No,
Well,
not him.
is it Marco? No, because
I'm
Marco
not
hasn't
paying
even been
attention
piping up.
to how these politicians feel about
Mm-mm.
our black lady Supreme Court justice.
My Florida statesman,
Florida statesman. Hmm.
DeSantis, and then
Oh, DeSantis.
you got Mitch McDonald. Then
Mitch
you got
McDonald. The turtle Mitch.
right.
Mitch the B
Mitch
word.
McDonald had a
Because
farm.
who knows? There are
Then you
mothers
have
watching this thing. Can't
let's
say
see,
bad words.
um, Mitch McDonald. Then you got
It's not so much that I underestimate their evil per se, bro. As much as it is the case that like one would hope that regardless of their ideological disposition or whatever, that tactically speaking, Biden would have learned from what occurred with Obama as it concerns Supreme Court justices. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right
like tactically speaking, like this isn't even a defense of American institutions or capitalism or whatever. This is just like pure tactics, bro. You saw what went down last time. Like, bro, come on now.
mm,
If you really want to get it done, you push it through tooth and nail. But as we've seen, it doesn't seem like Biden's very good at like pushing through things or
anything.
quote unquote getting things done, which allegedly, as far if I recall correctly, that was the whole point of supporting dude, that he would quote unquote get things done. And evidently, all it takes is a handful of rebellious, you know, Democrats
One,
to get right to not get anything done. And I'm just
one.
flabbergasted because like all we got to go do is go back to LBJ. and he'll do obscene things to quote unquote get things done.
Like everyone's talking about cinema, and I'm like, don't let her green hair fool you. Who's the real curmudgeon in here is the not Munchkin. What's his name?
Mansion.
Mansion.
That guy.
That guy. He's the real 911. He's the real devil,
bro. And you know what? The Democrats they do this all the time, bro. They do
it every time.
every time, bro.
Every single time, to the point where it's like, good luck trying to get back in there this next time.
Right.
Good luck,
But what can you expect from the capitalist B team, bro? That's all it is. Give people a glimmer of hope. Sheepdog them into a party that allegedly, cares. And then ultimately, when push comes to shove, they're not going to get anything done because they have nice little controlled opposition within the party that's going to prevent it. And we're going to care about what they say. And there's no method of negotiating or bargaining with these people that will lead to a resolution that satisfies both them, the right wing of the party, and the quote unquote center. And then the left of the party is just loud and useless, insofar as you can say that, the Democrats are left or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I really want the Democrats to do was to push forth voting rights. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
I'm a single issue voter.
Didn't that get jettisoned? Or like not off the ground?
You want to know what it was? A failure.
And then here we are.
You want to know what Build Back Better was? A failure.
And here we are. I mean, bro.
Another L for the Democrats. Another.
Yeah, man. And it's just remarkable to me. I don't get it. Like, I mean, if you think of it from the position, Democrats fundamentally aren't actually trying to resolve those particular issues at this point in time, it makes sense. If it's deliberate, it makes sense. If you see them as sheepdogs, it makes sense.
Like, I'll be honest, my entire voting rights thing, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who won't agree with me. But I believe everyone who lives in America should vote. Don't give a shit. I don't care. Don't care if they are an illegal immigrant. Why? Because we're the world's most powerful nation with the world's most powerful military. I really believe that people overseas should be fucking voting
in American elections.
Yeah, because honestly, what happens over here is going to affect them.
I like where this is going, because I was about to go on a whole no borders rant when we got on the whole undocumented immigrants and such, because borders aren't fucking real anyway. But that would be very interesting. That's a whole new angle, having people that don't live in America vote in American, at least national elections, right?
I feel like if we made it that really extreme,
the Senate.
Then we could have the crazies say, well, everyone who lives here, then okay, because that'll be the only way, right?
Yeah.
Instead of y'all trying to make it to where every citizen can vote, say every citizen and non-citizen and nationals of foreign states
that live within the United States,
right?
I mean,
that's
still like just procedural, right?
Foreign nationals who live in NATO states.
I totally get that, bro, but that's still just like procedural, right? Like the thing is, okay, we vote for these people, depending on what kind of election it is, every year to every 6 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while they're in office, for all intents and purposes, they can conduct business however they want. And more often than not, while they're in power, they enrich themselves, make connections with the not with the economic elite who have interest and therefore engaged in politics, and then they entrench their power, and they end up representing the interest of those elites rather than the interest of the people that actually put them in power in the first place, right?
Right.
without the ability
Mhm.
to recall these elections during their term, recall these individuals, these representatives, if you will, during their term for bad behavior, they can basically act with impunity and then
Right.
give themselves immunity
And
through the
recall
accumulation
elections
of
are pretty
wealth.
hard to deal with because you have to. It's like the. Don't you have to win by like 30% or like I think it has to be like 30% of the entire county has to like vote you out or something. Recall
I'm not just talking
recall
about
elections
local.
go by different election rules.
I'm not even just talking about local, bro. I'm talking about instant recall elections for bad behavior that can be like
Mm-hmm.
changing the rules such that they can be called at any point, right?
Okay.
You know, because you put them in office and then they do what they want. They get bought out and they act on in the interest of the individuals that put them in office in the first place. That's the other reason why we have to get like money out of politics, right? But this talk of getting money out of politics is absurd because the United States. Give me a second.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The
Go
this
ahead, do your
this this
thing.
talk of getting money out of my dog is like yelling and screaming in the background. This talk of like getting money out of politics is absurd in the context of the United States because politics has always been about money in the United States. That's what it's been about off rip. George Washington, the first
Well, the
president of the United
United
States.
States just recently passed a ruling, like what was it like
Mm.
while Trump was president 2 or 3 years ago, saying that we could donate that super PACs could donate unlimited amounts of money
Yeah, bro.
undisclosed.
Yeah, bro. It's always been about money. So it's not as simple as like quote unquote getting money out of politics. The fundamental structure of the United States has to be changed uh, to discourage
Thank
that
you.
particular behavior. Like at its root in its DNA, the United States is a
Thank you. Thank
country that was designed to be ruled by the extremely wealthy and property. And when
you.
they control the mechanisms, the levers of government, they're always going to use the levers of government to benefit their own private interest to the detriment of the people as a whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like something fundamentally there has to be like a fundamental rupture with like the foundational structure of the United States and whatever new structure takes place on this in this territory that this governing body known as the United States occupies. Would have to keep that in mind, right?
Well, we're already coming up with different ways that we're imagining the police.
Yeah, man. Speak on that. What can we do about the police?
Well, I just remember recently looking at this not to think about what we can do to fix it, but wasn't this a glaring problem? I was looking. I mean, we've already known about the militarization of a police, but I remember like it was like this town of like 500 people
Right?
who had 6 tanks at
What?
the police station.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's funny.
6 tanks.
What do you need 6 tanks for in a town with 500 people? In a town with 500 people, that's absurd.
So
Like
I was
what?
looking at some statistics. Did you know that it's like the officer to civilian population is like 15 to 1?
In that city?
No, in like every city.
What do you mean 15 to 1? Like for
So
every
like for every like one person, well, excuse me, for every 15 people, there's like one officer.
interesting. That's a
Mhm.
lot.
I thought that was a lot, and
Yeah,
then
bro.
like basically like, well, excuse me, and it's not that's not across the board. Of course, it varies from across the board, but they were like in this small town. He was citing the chief, the police chief was citing that number, and he was like, I could legitimately take over the whole town overnight.
Yeah, no, these are averages. And that's because, fundamentally, like when you look at the way the United States was designed, it's a police state.
Right.
The idea was to be able to prevent rebellion and insurrection. What the founders had in mind was a republic that could never be toppled, right? And what does that ultimately lean towards? It leans towards
Fascism.
extreme policing powers. Uh,
Fascism.
it leans in direction of extreme policing powers, especially given the contradictions that existed within the United States at its birth. Those extreme policing powers were necessary. You had a whole slave population of people that were forced to work against their will. You had a population of people who could not find any labor and were forced to live in the bush. You had another population of people who were basically cheated out of their wages and forced to work 16, 18-hour shifts and what have you.
LOL, indentured servants.
Right? Another segment of the population that was literally being genocided. Like, there's so many contradictions. The basis of this country is extreme policing, and that has always been the case. So I can just extreme policing, dog. That's America at her heart. That is America. Like, I was looking at the news, or rather, I was reading an article not too long ago, and it was interesting. It turns out that the New York Times, no, not the New York Times, but the NYPD, the budget for the NYPD is larger than Ukraine's military budget. For what, bro? Is someone invading New York sometime soon? Like, dog.
Thank you, baby. Right. And then I was just thinking the other day, right? The Ukrainian people, the people who are living there, like the citizens, are looking for guns.
The citizens.
That would not be an issue here in America.
No, it would not whatsoever. Like if Americans really, really wanted to, like if we were really with the shits, we could do the thing. You know,
we could invade it.
I'm not gonna
Literally,
specify what the thing
citizens could
is.
start invading countries.
This is not an advocacy for anything that would threaten the
Hey
United
man, are
States
you ready to go
government
invade Mexico?
in any way, shape, or form. But
Right.
like, if Americans
Is there
wanted to,
oil
we could
down
absolutely do the thing. Are you kidding me? What? Motherfuckers
If
are
there
like,
was oil in Mexico, man, do you not know what the America would do?
right? What?
It would
Not
be
just like invasions. I'm
terrible.
talking about like the American people. Ukrainians are like, oh, if Mexico invaded us or something, Americans, what? We would do the thing. Are you kidding me?
Right. I mean, literally, legitimately, like babies would be holding Glock 17s rolling down the street. Like, I mean, we legitimate. We have. When I heard that we have like basically like 3 guns to every person here.
Like, bro, it would be bad. Like, Femi would be out there strapped.
Right.
He'd be like, bah, bah. You know what I'm saying? Like, let a Canadian cross that border talking about some more
Shit.
1812 again. Like, bro, what? Get out of here. What are you talking about?
You know, so I think about stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, the Ukrainian people are looking for guns. Could you imagine how peaceful their society was before those assholes came over?
I don't know about all that, bro. Because like I said, they had that 8-year civil war going on their eastern Ukraine and the Donbass.
Well, basically before the fuckery
Oh
of
yeah, absolutely.
Putin.
Before the fuckery. I mean, some people say that like dude was like a dictator or whatever. Other people say he was democratically elected. I haven't looked into it, so I'm not going to speak on that. But I could say
I don't think a comedian are really good at being dictators. Like,
no, I'm not talking about the comedian being a dictator. I'm talking about the president that was ousted in 2014.
oh,
Yeah. So that would have been prior
because
to
he would have been.
prior to
He
this.
may have been Putin appointed.
Yeah. So some people say he was democratically elected. Some people say he was a dictator. I haven't looked into it, so don't know, bro. But all I can say is since 2014, shit has kind of been fucked.
Right.
It's just gonna be bad.
Globally. But so before we start wrapping things up, I do want to go ahead and leave our viewers with some word of advice. NAACP has put the red alert out for voting rights. Voting rights are completely under assault here in America, in the Georgia. Um, And basically, what they have said is that everyone needs to check their polling locations early. Your polling locations, churches, and places that you may have or may not have been voting at before may has changed. You need
May
to
have,
check.
bro.
Yeah, may have changed. Right,
Yeah,
right. It's more
yeah,
than likely changed.
yeah. It's
And
more than likely changed. Please check.
it's way more than just 9 locations, and the way that these locations closing, they cascade upon one another. So just because you hear 9 locations, that's going to change the order of the entire districting. That's a lot of issues. There's a lot of huge things going on.
And
The
we know why they're
also
doing this, dog.
right, right. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, right now the best man just isn't winning. You know, like, and I'm not even saying whether or not. And here's the thing: like, I agree with Trumpists when they say that the fucking thing was rigged. Okay, yeah, that was rigged. The shit with Bush was rigged. The shit with Al Gore was rigged. Like, I mean, y'all
Yeah,
talking about it being rigged? Yeah, we fucking agree with you.
we're
But
watching the
let's
rigging
just
in real time. We just disagree with the direction that we think the rigging is going in.
right.
That's all.
I actually agree with Trumpists with them saying that the election was rigged. But why do y'all find that this is the most convenient time to put it forth?
Because they believe it's rigged against them. Incorrectly.
Right.
It's not
And
rigged
it's
against them.
bullshit. And that's
It's
bullshit.
bullshit. It's rigged against
That's
us.
bullshit.
It's
It's
rigged against
right.
black people. It's rigged against working people. It's rigged against anyone that is not. Well, I'm not going to go into that because people are going to get into issues in that regard. But it's rigged against marginalized people, which is the
right.
majority of people.
Right. Especially here in America.
Yeah,
You know,
economically, politically, racially, it's rigged.
so the so basically get the word out if you're listening to me. Get the word out that you need to be checking your polling locations early. You need to, and it's really not just for you. It's really for your older people. It's really for your people that you know who are disabled, who can't get to the polling locations, who they're gonna have problems trying to get there, whatever. Make sure that those people can get to the ride. And then if you
Absolutely.
can't give them a ride, there are organizations like the NAACP, other people who will give them rides to the place. Like I know Clayton County NAACP, they do a ride to the polls program every single election. It has not stopped. And I'm sure that there's other NAACP branches around Georgia, like the Atlanta NAACP, Fed NAACP. There's plenty of NAACPs for you to get involved in and make sure that you can at least get involved into the ride to the polls thing. So that way, if you know of an eligible voter who needs to be voting in the election, and you already know how hard it is to get anyone to damn vote.
Right.
um, if you know how hard it is to get anyone to damn vote, then them telling you I would vote, all I would need is a ride, and you don't have to give them the ride. Stop it.
Right.
Go to the NAACP, get involved in that little
What's
part,
up, dude?
and then you'll be done. So
What's up, dude?
again, check your polling locations. They may have changed. Um, and this is unfortunately just one of those things that you just got to add to your thing because your voting rights is under attack.
Absolutely.
um and honestly, until we can get that squared away, there's going to be much more injustice in our world. We
No,
could be
absolutely.
just like Putin tomorrow, and if we're not already heading down that path, we're losing the monopoly on violence in our state governments because no one even trusts the cops anymore. We don't got to the point
I
now.
mean, honestly, it would be dope if we lost the monopoly of violence in our state government and the people, formed some kind of, community policing system in place of it. Um,
Well, I think now, I think it
and
was
they're right.
So
Community
you
policing, buddy.
heard in
That's
Texas
my
there was
Chinese
like
food.
17 indictments, and then there was 17 indictments of police officers who were basically in an overtime scheme, and then you had an indictment of some Californian highway patrolman who was indicted for like um I think it was like beanbag offenses.
What the
Yeah.
beanbag offense? Like, what do you? What?
Oh, excuse me. Flip that, reverse that. The California State Patrol was on the overtime scheme. The Texas people were using, shotgun beanbags on protesters during the George Floyd incident.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
and it
yeah.
killed a few people.
I'm
So,
not surprised.
less than lethal,
Less than lethal is
dead.
cat. Like, this
Right.
is a police state, bro.
And then, I always thought, like, how would a steel beanbag coming out of a shotgun be less than?
Dude, like, it's just like the definitions that they use, bro. Like, honestly, it's just wild to me. There's nothing less than lethal about that.
How do you do that?
There's nothing less than lethal about the methods that are used in this country to deal with individuals that are, or groups of individuals that are justifiably demanding that the rights that this country allegedly believes in are represented and respected and such.
So
Just absurd.
please, please, please get the word out to check your polling locations
Absolutely,
before a steel beanbag near you takes your ass out the game.
absolutely.
Because obviously, I mean, they can't win just by people showing up and voting.
Mm, true. I mean, like, honestly, on the local level, I think it's super important that people go out and vote and at least make an attempt to change their local government. So, because, like, okay, I get it, feeling powerless, right, and feeling helpless as it regards national issues,
Hmm.
because of the length of time that these individuals are in office and the distance from us and the stakes at hand from their perspective and given their positions. But when it comes to
Right.
local elections, things that happen in your state, your city, your town, and so on and so forth, uh, these are things that like immediately and directly impact you. You know what I'm saying? Like how schools are funded, that's determined on the local level, right? What your local taxes are, that's determined on the local level.
Your
Uh,
school taxes,
right, school taxes, right? How your
property
roads
tax,
get repaired, right? The policies of your local police department and the firefighters and such.
and
All of this
property
is
taxes
determined.
don't really affect you as much as it affects older people.
Right.
Really
Gas
think about
taxes,
that.
school, and things of this nature. And all of this is determined on the local level. So, as far as like the immediate impact on your life, it's paramount to vote in local elections. On the national level, the rich are going to always do whatever the heck they
And
want. But
also
locally,
make sure to go see about your board of commissioners.
absolutely.
Go sit in on those Thursday meetings, and go and see what's going on locally in your community, because it's really important that you stay on top of these things.
Right.
So, I remember me and you fighting for Marta. Like that was through the board of commissioners. Like we were in board of commissioners meetings. We were out in the street. It was a multi-phase thing. You have to. There's a lot that you can do for you, in your
Locally.
place, in
And
your people.
right, where it has an immediate impact beyond like plotting for revolutionary struggle or whatever. Like, there's no bloody revolutionary proletariat in the United States. So look, bro,
Especially not here. Like
exactly.
not here.
So
Not here.
for
You
the
might as
time
well just
being,
let
you have
that
to use
go.
the means that exist. Right.
Right. Like not here. Just
Right.
let that go.
Right.
Um. It this
Absolutely.
place wasn't set up for that.
The conditions don't exist. So like, let's
Right.
use what exists for now. Right. The
Right.
great great grandkids, if they still exist, if this climate disaster doesn't kill us all, can handle that. Right.
Right. So again, your voting rights is under attack, and this war has been fought. I mean, they've been chipping away at the Voting Rights Act. They've been chipping away at these maps. They done redistrict things all fucked up. I mean, yeah, I expect a Republican win.
Right.
No doubt.
Yeah.
100% no doubt.
Right.
They done already got caught. North Carolina done got caught up into them drawing the damn board all wrong. Um, we got people they're fighting us here in Georgia on early voting. They're fighting us here on they got rid of the absentee drop off boxes. Um and they shut down polling locations. They're trying to go through the early voting. What's next?
Right.
Oh, I'm
Absolutely.
already and by the way, I'm already planning on going to jail because I'm definitely about to go see feed do my annual every election.
You
uh
going to jail?
yeah, because every year I go and do food and water at the polls. Every year I have never skipped that.
Oh,
And
and
they
they
made
they
that
made those
illegal.
limitations.
Yeah, they made that
Yeah.
illegal. So
Ain't
guess
that
who's going
some
to jail?
like, bro, what is up with that, bro?
Yeah, guess who's going to jail?
And you know why they did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they could send us to jail.
Yeah. Like,
They're
I mean,
like,
at
we
that
don't
point,
want
bro,
people to
like,
go and
honestly,
vote.
at that point, bro, like, at that point, you have to realize, like, okay, yeah, we can participate in their little game, their participating elections, and like try to like change it, playing their game, but they don't even want us to participate in their game, dog.
And
You
that's where
feel
you get
me?
fucked. That's where you get fucked. And then for every person
Like, at
who
least
has
let me
ever
play the
said
game, dog.
that they care about freedom and you care about America, you care about these things, then you gonna come either get me out of jail or you not.
We do that almost every year, bro. I know you do it
Right.
every
I
year.
know.
I'm like an off
I
and on
already know. Like the Miss
type of
Cinnamon,
with the standing at the
NAACP will be
yeah,
there, but
yeah.
I
I'd be like
want I
every other year,
want
every.
other people to know what's going on.
That's
So if I
why
gotta go to jail just to pass out food and drink
water.
to people out in food and water out in line, we don't be telling people who to vote
We
for.
don't.
We don't do none of
We
that. We
don't,
just give
bro.
you food,
Just be chilling. Here's some food.
water,
Here's
and
some
we just
water.
leave. So if that is what's gonna send me to jail, why not go to jail? There's worse things to go to jail for, right?
I get it, but like you have to like really think about that, bro. Like
Bro, if
of
I
all the
really
things
got to
that they're
think
sending
about
us to
giving out
jail.
food and water in a free country to
No,
send
no, no,
my
no. That's
ass
not
to
what I'm
jail,
talking about, bro. I'm talking about you have to think about like the implications of the fact that giving out food and water in a free country will send you to jail, a quote unquote
right?
free country, right?
Right.
Like we've even acknowledged that to a certain extent your little fucking participatory elections are rigged, and we still want to participate in them, and you won't even let us. We've acknowledged that the scales are not even in our favor. We still want to play your silly game, and you won't even let us. What
Yeah.
are you scared of? What are you
Yeah.
scared of?
Yeah. That
Like,
that makes it even
jeez.
worse.
Like, we could just choose
That
not to
really
play your
does make
game
it
and do it the way the
worse,
Romans used to do when they wanted to deal with a government they didn't like.
bro. On that one,
Jeez. We just want to play your silly rig game. Let us play your silly rig game. Let us participate in your silly rig
at
game.
least just make us feel good.
At least let us try to participate. Like give us an opportunity to do
I
so.
mean, you're gonna do what you did down in Florida
Right.
and throw away a whole bunch of votes when it really
Absolutely.
matters.
And get your outcome that you want anyway. But at least let us try
At
before we
least
just
put on a good
throw the
show.
towel in and do something drastic. Jesus. God. We're trying to play your silly
So,
game.
yeah, I was really disheartened as usual. And I mean, the NAACP. What I like about it is that we always have solutions.
Right.
The problem is that we're never going to be able to use new solutions because it's the same old. Well, excuse me, we're always using new solutions
Hey,
to.
bro, just let him over. Like, let him chill with me, dog. He was fine. He was just vibing, bro. Send him here.
Yeah. The solution to it, we always come up with new solutions to the same old problem: voting rights. Why
Right.
why is voting rights so crazy to even think of in a democratic nation? Everyone talking about I don't know who's voting.
Cause, bro,
I
like
don't just
it
want
was never
anyone
intended to be a
any old
democracy,
body
bro.
voting.
Like they never intended for like if the founders were resurrected today, they would be flabbergasted. You let the Negroes vote, you let
Right.
the women vote, you let the poor whites vote. What in the world? You let immigrants come here and vote? Have you lost your mind? This was never intended to be like a situation where
Right.
like people actually participated. Like truth be told, conservatives are being true to what the founders intended, bro. They were scared of what would happen if people could actually participate in their government in a big way, you know, and
Yeah.
not just the government, but like participate in the economy and have a say in the way things are managed and distributed and so on and so forth. A real say and part to play in that. They were terrified of that. They don't want democracy, bro. The conservatives don't want democracy. I have my doubts that the liberals want real democracy either. Otherwise, they'd be fighting a little harder.
They want bubblegum
They
democracy.
want bubblegum democracy.
Everything is great while I get my McDonald's, and that comes from Argentina, and they have a like
Like, bro,
child slaves making hamburgers. Like that's usually
bro,
what it comes down to. Somewhere child slavery, somewhere along the lines of like some
whoa, whoa,
fucked up
whoa.
bad workers' rights,
Workers' rights, and that's the other thing,
non-unionized.
bro. Like, part of it is like, yeah, like we're fighting for like our rights to vote and stuff, but I think the struggle for that would be more there would be a greater sense of urgency with regard to that if the rulers of the economy in this country, were not able to just freely offshore the exploitation necessary to maintain our system to other countries.
And you're 100% right, because the problem isn't workers. It's not see when we talk about workers' rights, right? I have friends that are in unions. Okay, and there's this guy who is really good at what he does.
Word.
He does the Fight for 15 movement, and he's Joel Harslam or something like that. And he's one of the best dudes I ever met on a march. When I tell you, whenever I need to go march and I need someone to be there,
He's there.
I don't know where this dude does or what he where he comes from. He comes from out of nowhere and just parachutes in like, "Hey, I'm here." Like, okay, cool. But I'm gonna tell you right now, when it comes to workers' rights, that cannot be the only solution. I
What?
was asking my dad the other day, and I was like, Dad, why didn't unions work in your plant? Because he said, we always had some kind of piece of ass union. And I was like, what do you mean piece of ass union? Like, what's because we don't have unions at all now. So I'm like,
Yeah.
if unions were pieces of ass, like why did companies want to get rid of them so damn bad?
Well, you have to think about like as far as like why companies wanted to get rid of them so damn bad. You have to think about it from the position of like an employer, right? It's easier to exploit one worker than a whole group of workers that are like together collectively bargaining, right? If your entire workforce decides to go on strike, guess what happens? There's no production, right? The
I
issue of
hear
unions in
what
the
you're
United
saying,
States.
Demi.
Well,
I
no, no,
hear
no. I'm
what you're
saying like
saying.
unions in the United States did not work, bro. Like that's what I was going to get to. Like the issue of unions in the United States in particular is that like the unions were far too easily corrupted. They bought into the logic of management itself, and then the union itself just became another strata from which the company exploited the workers in the United States.
Hmm.
Like it's ridiculous. So like unions are cool or whatever, but that's not I don't
No,
unions of
you it's a
any unions
bullshit.
moving
Like
forward would
that's what
have to
I'm
be
trying
different,
to
bro.
figure out. Like, like I know that there's like people who are doing the work, right? Because
Yeah,
there's people who are doing the work wherever we are. Like
right.
I know that that people are gonna say the NAACP, oh blah blah. Every time I say I'm with the NAACP, there's like 500 different. Well, I don't know what
Oh
the.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah, no, they talk shit. But like, no, my point is
right, and I'm
like the
but
unions,
people that are in there are doing work.
right? Oh no, I'm not saying like they're doing work or not doing work. What I'm saying is like the unions that have existed in the United States, I'm agreeing with you, have been very ineffective in recent times, insofar as it is concerned, like having a real revolutionary or dramatic effect on changing U.S. policy to favor workers, if you will, right?
Hmm.
They haven't done that in a while. They haven't had that kind of revolutionary character. And it's because at some point, American workers thought that they had received enough, um, and the struggle stopped. And then the capitalist class immediately started attacking, stagnated wages, attacked benefits, stole pensions, attacked the infrastructure, stopped funding the government, stopped funding education, and so on and so forth. The moment workers thought that we had it good, they attacked. It was relentless. Like that's what happened. So if unions do come back, it has definitely have to be a different form of union. We have to learn from the mistakes that were made. The
Well,
key idea behind unions is that there's strength in numbers, right? That's
well,
all it is.
and that was what I was like definitely trying to get to, like,
My bad, bro.
well, no. That's what I was. You've already said it, and I'm glad that you did because mine was long and roundabout. But you summed that shit up like a nice little pamphlet, and I'm glad because I had a book. But basically, like, yeah, like that's exactly what I was getting at was like managerial things, basically people at the top, corruption, blah 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 blah. You literally hit every single point. Um, and that was what I because it's like it's no sense of like saying like we need to do another bad thing. You know what I'm like? I get so tired of like that seems like to be like our normal thing. Like I don't like because there are people who are against unions who are for workers' rights. And
I get that, but it's like, how can workers struggle for their rights individually, right? Like, as an
right,
individual black man, I can't struggle for voting rights. It's going to take a collective of black people to struggle for that. Like, that's the whole idea behind unions. But
right.
the problem is they get fucking bought out. They get bought out. The moment you like they vote the quote unquote union boss or whatever into a position of power. They make him a manager, and all of a sudden he's making six figures, and he's like, "Fuck y'all, I'm good, bro."
And then but then if you get the rich guy, like the guy who has a job and he's like not he's making too much money. You basically got Trump as a union boss. Like
You know what I'm saying?
like
Yeah, no, it's like it's wild, bro.
I don't
So
know,
it's
like I
just
feel like we
and
just gotta like I feel like I need to get in contact with Joel and in Joel and figure out what can we do and talk about from that perspective. Like why why is that such a big thing? Anyway.
what that?
Yeah, like
Cause, bro, American
why
capitalists
like
have a
what
lot of
can we
money.
do? Like there has to be some kind of legislation being crafted to deal with this. It's gotta be right. But like the
To prevent workers
legislation
from being
to
bought off.
right. Well, at least union heads
Oh, come on, bro. Like they would love nothing more than for union heads to be bought off,
bought off,
bro.
right?
What the heck just happened to this light?
If I don't have money, then what else will I use?
Like they would love for nothing more than for union heads to be bought off, bro. That's great because it protects their interest. You know,
Right.
it protects the capitalist interest. If unions, if workers collectively coming together, the way any group of individuals who believe their rights need to be represented is a threat, then buying out the leaders so they misdirect the workers and accomplish nothing and ultimately don't represent workers' rights, do such disastrous jobs that the very idea of workers collectively coming together to demand certain things seems absurd. That benefits them. It's great, you know. They love the fact that we hate unions. They don't want any of us
Hey,
to come
how
together.
about this idiot praising Putin?
This man, God help his soul.
Like, I mean, you already got away with the Russian investigation. You already got away with an insurrection. You already got away with these things. And then you come out and you start praising. Like, he's trying to figure out, how do you go to jail? That's what I'm trying to figure
He
out.
wishes he was Putin. That's what it was, bro. That's what it is,
True.
rather. He wishes he was Putin.
True. And
That's
and
all.
and and the American Putin and the American public loves Putin.
Oh, they love themselves some
They love
Putin.
him. They
They
love
love
him.
that man. I mean, not the whole
And that's
American
and
public,
that's what we
definitely the right
voted
wing
for
for
him.
sure.
And you said it correctly. He wants to be just like Putin.
Yeah,
And Americans want Putin.
yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, we're so busy looking at what Russia is doing in Ukraine. And we're not even a second away from being in the exact same position.
What, in another war? One,
No, and it with unfavorable world uh outlook.
oh, unfavorable world. I mean,
When your international peers don't want to, being excommunicated by your international peers.
to a certain extent, Trump really did do that thing, though. There were a lot of agreements that the Obama administration had in place with regards to Asia in particular,
Yep.
that were
Looking at
designed
thinking about
to
the long
encircle
term.
China, and also bolster America's geopolitical position. And then Donald went in there and basically said F all of that. And since then, I mean, prior to that, China was definitely getting a lot of trade partners. But since then, China's kind of like the number one trade partner for like the majority of the countries in like the world now. Like
Yeah.
the world. And that happened in 4 years. Like it
You
was
thought you was
leading to
getting
that, but like
lithium.
Donald came in and China was just like, I bet, run it.
I seen some of the huge cavities being formed from like the lithium mining in China. They
Yeah,
look
man.
like they look like they have scooped the world out. Like,
Talk about it. The climate catastrophe. Like going green is not necessarily going to be carbon neutral initially. The amount of effort that is required to extract these resources
it's not
is
gonna
quite
be
damaging to
carbon
the
neutral,
environment.
but I feel like it's gonna have to be mindful. That's
Hmm?
it. It's not gonna be carbon neutral, and I think that's what we need to stop talking about. We need to stop talking about dumbass buzzwords.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying like it's like I'm not
Not
saying
you,
carbon neutral
not
in a
you.
like in a
Of
way
course,
like yeah, like the media absolutely. But like as it concerns China, when it comes to China, I'm just kind of like applying a wait and see strategy. Because what I've realized about like the Chinese leadership is they say what they're going to do, and then they do it for the most part. Like they've been pretty consistent about that. It's
I have yet to see a single country do that. Period. I haven't seen one,
what like say they're going to do something and then do it.
and then just do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, they
if
do
you're
that, and
talking
it's
about an
weird.
actual country doing that, then
Yeah, so like with China, like I have my doubts and everything because I'm just a skeptical human being. It's in my nature. But with them, I just keep my mouth shut and just watch, read what they say they're gonna do, listen, and then I watch to see if they're gonna do it, and then they do it. I'm like, oh, cool, that's neat, I guess. So like China is saying they're gonna deal with the whole climate change situation by building something called ecological civilization. I'm just gonna wait and see. I live in America. My problems
ecological
are with
civilization.
yeah, my problems are with America. China
And
can do
that's my
whatever
whole
China
thing.
fucking
Like,
wants.
there when we got headlines like this,
Yeah, yeah,
you can't be fighting a fucking war.
word. Like what? This man might run again and actually win. If not him, at least one of his sycophants or students.
Just the idea alone that Trump supporters was wearing shirts talking about, I'd rather be a Russian than a Democrat.
That's hilarious. That's the funniest thing ever, bro. That's that they would rather be a Russian than a Democrat. I mean,
You would rather be Russian than a Democrat. You wouldn't even want to live in the free world.
are we really the free? We were just talking about how unfree we are, bro. Like, honestly,
This is as free as it gets.
what is freedom really, bro?
The freedom to walk down the store and get some Popeye's chicken and walk back with no bombs dropped on your big head. That's it.
That's not happening in Russia, though.
I don't know what's going on in Russia.
I don't either, bro.
I don't know what's going on in Russia. I was
I
thinking
don't live
about
there.
going. When I was young. I was thinking about back in 2007, 2008. I was thinking about going to Russia. I wanted to visit because I was like, I want to know what the other side is like because that's like our people that we're not supposed to like. Now I'm like,
Yo,
Russia.
dog. He said it's like, man, bro. You know what would have been dope, like, but not dope at the same time, to be a black man in the '70s and go to Russia while the USSR was still around, just to see what's
Just
this
to see.
socialism shit that you motherfuckers keep talking about really about. What is this shit? And at the same time, no, because you're a black man in the U.S. in the '70s. What the
It's
fuck?
kind of crazy to me that this entire war in Ukraine is being fought based on the equipment and the things built in the USSR.
I mean, honestly, bro,
It
that
didn't
doesn't
get any
surprise me.
better. It didn't get any better from there.
That I mean, the USSR was pretty advanced, bro. Like, I mean, when you're, I mean, if you
Yeah,
look at it,
yeah, it is
they
really
were
advanced for their
they were
equipment and all that stuff to still last as long because the USSR fell long before we even got here.
yeah, no, I fell in '91, I believe. But the thing
So
is, fucking as regards that, let's just I'll just make this one point as regards that, and we can you can whatever, bro. But like as regards that in particular, that's just one of the advantages of an economy geared towards like building things to be used.
mm,
There's no planned obsolescence built into the fucking shit. You plan when you're producing something, you're intending that shit to last as long as possible to maximize the utility that you get out of it. And that's just the one advantage of like socialism, if you will, right? That's the only thing. That's all I gotta say about that. But beyond that, man, that shit degenerated into state capitalism and fell apart. Fuck the USSR.
state capitalisms because I was wondering because I was looking at like early Russian urban development plans
Mm.
and they were really advanced,
Yeah,
very advanced,
yeah. That's the thing,
way
bro.
beyond the things that we were thinking about.
Yeah, bro. That's they were on the cutting edge. A lot of communists back then were futurists at the same time. So the world that they were trying to create, the world that they were envisioning, was beyond their wildest imagination. A big issue with our modern epoch today is that we just don't imagine anymore. Like we just don't
Yeah,
think beyond our current condition, our current system. Not even talking about communism, Marxism, socialism, whatever. Those that's the 20th
right. I'm
century.
talking about the
This is the
actual
20th,
economic urban
21st
planning.
century, bro. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like we need to think beyond where we are, beyond the limitations of our present age. People
True.
are more willing to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism.
True.
Capitalism has clearly met its limits. Let's go beyond it, bro.
Hmm. You did. That's a very poignant point, and I think we should leave off on that. Uh, def. I think that's the strongest point to leave off on. People would rather imagine the end of the world rather than the end of capitalism, and I think that that encompasses my feelings towards Americans in the Ukraine situation. That encompasses my feelings towards the whole voting rights things. That was the quote, and we're gonna leave
Boom.
it at that.
Good shit, bro.
Good shit.
Cheers. Hey, Pookie. I cuddled
Cheers.
with you, bro. Calm down.
Yeah, please. Thank you, baby. Cheers. That was some good shit to do. Yeah,
Huh?
that was a good podcast, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, we're still live.
Yeah, we're still live.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, that was dope, bro. That
That
was
was dope.
enjoyable. It was long overdue, I
Thank y'all
think.
so much for joining us on all of the outlets. Please follow my page at Jeremy Cheat Day Podcast. Check out my boy Demi's page at Mind Kill Media. Mind
I
Kill
don't be
Media.
posting on it like that, but I guess I might as well start now, huh?
Well, you should start now. So, and check me out on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch.
That's a bet.
So you should be able to find me on all those outlets as in Twitch as Hot Cream Spray, and that is Kareem with a K. So,
Follow my boy.
all right, y'all, take it easy. Thank you so much for coming out.
Joe
This was a
Biden.
fun podcast.
Finger guns.
Oh no, the
I mean,
lamest sign out of all
I've been doing
time.
this all night, bro.
Oh
Okay,
no.
I'm gonna do the Nixon. I'm not a crook. Piece of
That's better. That's better.
not a crook.
You're not a crook.
Not a crook.
Good night,
Peace,
y'all.
y'all. Good night.